Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to completely shatter a massive illusion. We are breaking down the brutal math of the trucking industry, a mathematical reality so unforgiving, it can literally bankrupt a 100-year-old fleet with tens of thousands of employees in just a matter of weeks. I mean, we see these massive rigs on the highway every single day, but what's actually happening beneath the hood financially? Well, it's absolutely shocking.
Look, if you spend any time online, you've probably seen the pitch, right? Trucking is the ultimate passive income. The idea is you buy a couple of trucks, hire some drivers, sit back, and just watch the cash roll in. But the reality? It is entirely different. Trucking is a relentlessly unforgiving business model. Honestly, it's a cash-eating trapdoor. Even if you do absolutely everything right, you can still lose 25 grand a year per truck. So let's dive into the exact numbers they really don't want you to see.
All right, let's kick things off with Section 1, the startup cost shock.
The initial barrier to entry here is a sudden, massive financial shock that hits you hard before you've even secured your first load or moved a single box. We're talking $120,000 to $200,000. That is the going rate for a brand new Class 8 tractor. And here's the crazy part. That is literally just the front half of the rig. You haven't even bought the part that actually carries the freight yet. You're dropping a massive initial investment just for the privilege of sitting in the driver's seat.
Because think about it. Hooking up a standard dry van trailer, that's going to add another $40,000 to $70,000 to your bill. Oh, you want to haul food? A refrigerated unit pushes that up to 90 grand. So right out of the gate, you are driving your total starting equipment costs to nearly $290,000, almost $300,000, and you haven't even turned the key in the ignition.
Now, you might be wondering, why not just buy used? To avoid those massive upfront costs, a lot of people try to buy a 5-year-old used truck for, say, 50 grand and think they're saving a fortune. But they completely forget the hidden trap of wear cycles. If you try to save cash with a used truck, you risk falling straight into a $25,000 repair trap. A single high-mileage emissions repair or an engine rebuild can hit you in your very first year. So now you're out 25 grand and your truck is just sitting in a mechanic's bay earning you exactly $0.
Which brings us to Section 2. The monthly bleed.
Okay, so the startup costs are terrifying, for sure. But the fixed monthly overhead, it never sleeps. To run just one truck for 120,000 miles a year requires a $291,000 baseline cost before you make a single dime in profit. Driver pay alone eats up $119,000. Diesel fuel, that burns through another $83,000. Equipment payments take $47,000, and routine maintenance is going to run you about $24,000. Add in commercial insurance for a new operator, and you're looking at a $291,000 machine that absolutely demands to be fed every single month.
And that leads us perfectly into Section 3, the razor-thin margin.
So what happens when you pit those towering operating costs against your actual freight earnings? Well, things get pretty scary. Shippers pay you per mile, right? Let's say you get a typical, decent spot rate of $2.50 per mile. Even if you gross an impressive $300,000 in revenue, your net profit basically evaporates, collapsing down to a shocking $9,000 for an entire year of grueling work.
You are left surviving on a microscopic 3% margin. 3%! And remember, that tiny sliver of profit is completely at the mercy of the broader freight market. When demand is high, sure, you might feel like you're printing money. But what happens during a market crash, like the Great Freight Recession of 2023? Rates plummet way below your operating costs. In those moments, you are literally paying out of pocket, bleeding your own savings just to haul other people's stuff.
Let's move on to Section 4, the silent killer.
As if surviving on a 3% margin wasn't punishing enough, there's this operational hazard that can instantly turn a really good day into a total disaster. It's called deadhead miles. This is when you're forced to drive a commercial truck with an empty trailer. When you're deadheading, you are generating all of those steep operational costs we just talked about, burning fuel, putting wear and tear on the engine, paying for your driver's time, without earning a single penny of revenue. You're essentially just burning money to reach your next pickup location. Let's put this into perspective. Imagine you book a fantastic $2,600 load from Chicago to Atlanta. Initially, that looks like a great rate of $2.60 per mile. But if you have to drive 200 miles completely empty just to get to that pickup in Chicago, you have to factor those deadhead miles into your math. Suddenly, driving those 200 empty miles drops your real rate per mile to $2.17. Because of your towering operating costs, you just turned what looked like a highly profitable day into a mathematical loss. Just like that.
So how do you make it? Section 5, the secret to survival.
With the brutal math stacked this heavily against them, how does any fleet owner actually survive this relentless rolling equation? Well, the few who do survive make a fundamental mindset shift. First, they understand this isn't actually a vehicle business. It's a data and cash flow business. They rely on relentless, weekly cost-per-mile tracking, so they always know their exact break-even point. Second, they don't rely on the volatile spot market. They lock in guaranteed shipping contracts before they even buy their trucks. And third, they maintain a strict 90-day cash reserve buffer. They plan for the bad days, because mathematically, the bad days are absolutely guaranteed.
It really all boils down to this chilling quote: the margin for error is zero. So the next time you pass an 18-wheeler on the highway, remember that you aren't just seeing a truck. You're looking at a high-stakes, multi-thousand-dollar rolling financial equation hurtling down the road where one simple miscalculation costs absolutely everything. It really makes you wonder, given these brutal, razor-thin numbers, just how fragile is the supply chain that keeps our entire world running?